Hey there everyone, welcome back. I'm Emily Harris, author of STEAMY Historical Romances, and today we are discussing writing characters with disabilities and or illnesses, chronic issues of any sort. So if this is of interest of you, keep on watching. This is a difficult topic and I don't want to screw it up. I probably will, so I apologize in advance. So a while back, I came across a video by Joey Paul, who is an author who happens to be disabled or have disabilities. She put together a video on things that really irritate her about authors who are not disabled or do not suffer chronic physical or mental ailments, but use these traits in their characters. She brought up a lot of really good points, a lot of things that I want to keep in mind for writing my characters. And although she didn't state this explicitly, I think the idea was to discourage authors from giving their characters certain traits that they don't know anything about, which has merit. This is true. But from my point of view, I think there is also worth and value in having characters that are vastly different from yourself. It's a great way to learn. If done properly, it's a great way to learn. I'm going to talk a little bit about why I do not shy away from creating characters who may have some sort of disability or chronic issue that they are dealing with. My background is as a nurse. I was a nurse for 10 years. Part of that was as an army nurse. And then private side, I worked in long-term care and as a home health nurse. So my patients included military members who were badly injured, usually by some sort of explosion. So they were suffering things like very bad burns and deformities from explosion. They also very often had traumatic amputation of limbs. This group of people generally is young and healthy to begin with. So the associated psychological changes that they have to go through in adjusting to life after whatever it is happened. From there, we go into the patients I had in home health specifically. All of these patients tended to be traumatic brain injuries or spinal cord injuries, very severe effects, very little chance of ever getting back to the life and capabilities that they had before, and how they now have to deal with their new normal, their new life. I think a lot of the complaint with authors writing these characters is that they are probably writing them with some preconceived mental notion about what this life would be like, and that preconceived notion is negative. And this is perpetuated by books because in that case, the disabled character decided life was not worth it. In those cases, anyone who can relate to that character would have a legitimate reason to be upset or angry because the perceived message that the author is putting out is that life like this is not worth it. This person is better off dead. While I am sure that was not the main intent of the author, it's how it came across to a lot of people. Given that this is such a touchy topic, I wanted to explain a little bit about why I don't necessarily shy away from it. It is true that I do not have the first-hand personal knowledge of what this is like. That puts the responsibility on me then to do the best possible research that I can ahead of time. I may still fail in how I present my character, but that is really the only way to get as close as possible to presenting the character accurately. Why would I want to go to that trouble? Well, for me, I am massively interested in the psychological aspect of these characters. People, human beings, are just miraculous. They really are in what we can accomplish and what we can overcome, what we can achieve, what we can overcome in even the best scenario, when we have no other ailment or hindrance, potential hindrance to deal with. If we are perfectly hardy and hale, we can do wonderful things. Now, think about if there is some stumbling block or some obstacle that we have to add into the mix, and we can still do amazing things. That is my main interest, because to be completely honest, and I think this is the main point that most authors are trying to make when they include these characters, we don't really know how we would come out in this scenario. If I found myself wheelchair bound tomorrow, what would I think of life? Would I continue to move on? Would I overcome? Would I create a new fulfilling life for myself in this scenario, or would I give up? That is the ultimate question, and I think that is what most authors are trying to address when they create these characters. The problem is we don't always address it well. And I'm not going to say that I do, because I don't know if I do or not, but I try. The most inspiring patient I had, oddly enough, because this was also the most irritating patient I have ever had, and I actually wound up leaving his employ. I said, nope, I can't do it. I can't work with you. So as a person, I did not like this guy. But from the standpoint of medical miracles, he was very inspiring. So the short story is spinal cord injury, snapped his neck, and was he completely paralyzed or only partially paralyzed? I believe completely paralyzed. But the point is that his particular spinal cord injury, where it was, for one thing, he should not have survived. That he should not have still been capable of breathing. Therefore, miracle number one. Secondly, he should not have been able to ever walk again, but he was retraining himself to walk. He believed that he could and he would, so he did. And this is where I think this psychological miracle thing comes into play for me. Because just think about the mental strength you have to do that. And again, this goes back to, if it were me, would I have that strength? I don't know. I may not. That is the thing that most of us, I believe, most authors want to portray in our books. Certainly in my characters' cases, whatever ailment I give them, for me, is secondary to the fact that they overcome it internally. They decide, I'm not going to let what the whole world around me thinks affect what I think of myself, because this is me and my life. I'm going to go out and live it. That's what I hope to always get through with my characters. In my case, I have, I think, a good basis for doing that because I write historicals. And this is different from authors portraying disability in contemporary terms, because there is a much broader understanding and inclusion than there ever has been in the past. In my case, my stories always revolve around things like social stigma. Back in the day, we stuck people in asylums for just about anything. Anything. I mean, if your family member was an embarrassment to you for who knows what reason, they got locked away. Locked away, not talked about, not shown off in public. And this was life for many people. So that is the thing that I try to look at in my books. And that is the kind of social norm that I give as the setting for my characters. That is a pretty harsh outside life to come up against and have to move past. I want to kind of give credit to two other people. So it was Joey Paul's video that initially kind of inspired me and got me thinking on this topic. And then I recently saw a book review video by Avery Loves Books, which was a whole set of romances which include disabled and or chronically ill characters. So I will link to that as well. And I do also want to add in the channel Pay Attention. So Pay was talking about the importance of reading fiction. And that got me thinking about partially what I said earlier about how would I react. And this is, to me, one of the great benefits of writing fiction. Fiction provides anonymity to some degree for we as people to consider different scenarios. Best case, worst case, everything in between. Society at large dictates what is proper or not for us to think about and speak about. But when looking at works of fiction, there's a lot more gray area. There's a lot more leeway in which we can kind of think about and manipulate and work with whatever off-topic or even dark themes might be running around in our heads, even if we don't want to admit to it. Even if it is not socially acceptable to admit to it, we can explore these themes in fiction. And that is why I think fiction is so important. And that is why I think many authors delve into these topics. They give their characters characteristics that they don't personally have in order to explore a theme. Even though, as noted in Joey Paul's video and most of the commentary to that video, many people said, well, the author needed to research more and should have maybe interviewed folks with that disability, and which is all very true. But I do want to add in that, it's different for everyone. Very different for everyone. What one person experiences is not what the next person experiences, even if they have the same ailment, disfigurement, whatever it is. All right, I am going to end my rant here and hope that I made some sort of sense. I hope I made my point. I hope I did it relatively well, and I am going to try to edit this as short as possible. Please do let me know what you think about this theme. If there are any other specifics that you want me to address with my view of creating characters with disabilities. And as always, thank you for joining in. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. Consider subscribing. And I will be back hopefully next week with more information on the interesting people, places, and things which inspire my writing. Until then, happy reading.